everybody, and welcome back to Ask the Unfaithful. As always, I am joined by my esteemed colleague, mentor, best friend. What else can I say? An introduction that needs no introduction is my good buddy, James. How are you today on this Monday for us?
I'm doing really well, Sam. You look like you're doing great. You,
I had to get a haircut.
I
I
saw
had I had to I had to trim it up after last time you broke out that little fun
what, this one.
party finger. Yes. So I had to get a haircut and bring myself down a little bit. But we've had some great podcasts lately. I don't know about you, but I've had some phenomenal feedback from clients all over literally the world talking about the content that we've done. So props to you, big fella. I'm just the eye candy.
Oh, I'd say you're the glue.
Nah,
Keep it
I'm the eye
together, my
candy.
friend.
For those of you that are new subscribers, on behalf of James and I, we are absolutely thrilled that you have subscribed. If you are just joining us today, or if this is maybe one of the first podcasts that you are tuning in for, we'd love for you to subscribe. We'd love for you to leave a comment. And as we have said before, we'd love to hear from you. We get email from people all over the globe. You can reach us at asktheunfaithful@gmail.com. One little caveat. Many of you are in such distress. And listen, our hearts are with you and go out to you. Many of you all over the world are tuning in and are trying to make sense out of situations that in many ways are nonsensical. And our hearts are with you. And on behalf of James and I, we care deeply for you. And we just can't get to all the email that are coming in a timely fashion. We're doing our best. This is not we don't have a team of people that are answering our email for us. We do it all ourselves. So if you've received an email from us, rest assured it's from one of us. We promise to get to you when we can. Please note, we are unable to give advice over email. It's just too dicey, and we wouldn't want to give you insight that is an overly generic or just kind of broad sweeping. James is the first one that'll tell you he loves to operate with a scalpel, and he does, but email just does not provide that kind of forum. Right, James?
Yeah, it's there's so much that people need to say, right? Because they've been going through so much and just haven't been heard. And it really is very difficult to provide an answer that is going to be helpful, and incisive and really help them move forward in an email.
There's only so much that these little hands and James can do. We promise to do our best, but we are so grateful for you tuning in and becoming a part of our little community here. Today, we've got a pretty phenomenal question that we've thought long and hard about. And that question is, how do the unfaithful invalidate the betrayed's feelings? Now, what I'm going to do is lead us off with a definition of emotional invalidation. This is going to be our starting point, our ground zero. Emotional invalidation is when someone dismisses, ignores, or minimizes another person's feelings, or it could be even thoughts or behaviors. It can be a form of emotional abuse that can be damaging and traumatic for the person experiencing it. I'll pass it to you, my good brother.
So this kind of invalidation, it can really make someone question the truth of their feelings. So how valid are my feelings? Um, what are they really real? They can become confused about whether they're okay to even have those feelings. And it creates conflict between, well, what's rational and what's emotional, because feelings don't have to be rational, right?
Right.
And, when those feelings are invalidated, it can make the other person feel really unimportant. It can actually jeopardize their sense of self-worth and even their existence. It can lead to feelings of anger, shame, guilt, worthlessness. So anytime that we invalidate somebody else, all of those things can happen. And that's not something I think anybody really wants to do.
No, and this is not going to be this attack upon the unfaithful. We never do a podcast. Why would we do a podcast that would attack what we have been. We would only want to handle it with grace and compassion and understanding. So if you're an unfaithful, understand we're never coming for you. We are with you. We understand precisely what it's like to be where you're at. You would have to work hard to trump the mistakes and the failures of James and I promise you. But maybe what would be good, James, is you could share a few examples because sometimes we as unfaithful think that invalidating our partner's feelings is like so aggressive and so over the top, but it's really not, right? It can be very simple statements that can be very wounding.
Yeah, it really can. Things that are almost everyday statements that, you know, we've heard all our lives, right? So things like, stop being so sensitive, or, you're so dramatic, just lighten up, or, man, you always overreact. And then, well, you want me to tell you things, but I can't say anything around you without you getting all emotional about it. Can't you just let it go? Those are really examples that we can say that we don't necessarily think are invalidating or hurtful, and yet they are. So I think your point about we're not trying to, um, criticize the unfaithful or shame them. What we're trying to do is to really point out some difficult truths about some of the things that we do and say that we might not even be able to see that are doing harm to our partners.
Because even if you're not meaning to, even if you're not thinking that you still are. And if you can't wrap your mind around the fact that maybe you did not mean to wound them, you didn't go into the conversation intending to wound them. At the end of the day, though, you did. And until we as unfaithful, quite honestly, wake up and pull our heads out of the sand, and if we don't quit justifying our actions and excusing well, that's not what I meant, I think you should just get over it, I think you're making a big deal out of nothing, until we can back away from those types of statements, all we're doing is, quite honestly, and I would use different verbiage if this was a men's meeting, but all we're doing is proving how unsafe we are, right? We're just proving to therapists, coaches, pastors, priests, rabbis, you name it, that we're not getting it.
Yeah, I mean, I always like to say, we can't make our partners feel safe. They're in charge of that, but we can stop doing unsafe things.
Oh, hold on. Okay. Yes. Now, we can't make our partners feel safe. That's a big statement. That's a true statement. Safety is something that they have to cultivate and learn how to self-regulate while we also co-regulate. It's not either or, it's both and. But what we can do is really stop being an ass and stop doing unsafe things, right? To me, it seems pure and simple.
Well, it really is. We just the difficult part, I guess, is sometimes, like we said, we're not going to know when we're being unsafe. I think there are some things that are pretty definitive, right? Acting
Yes.
out, being cruel, being mean, being really going on the offensive. Some of the things that we've talked about in the past. This is a lot of this is really so subtle, like you had said, that we may not even know we're doing it. And so this is becoming aware of, the things that we're doing that are unsafe that we may not think are unsafe. We might even go, well, why is that unsafe? The fact is that if it is for our partners, and we can be in charge of that. We can't
Yes.
we can't pull anybody into safety, but we can say, okay, I'm creating the space for safety, right? I'm not doing this and keeping you unsafe.
Yeah, I think we could do a podcast just on safety alone, which we'll have to do. I'm going to write that down because I'm getting old, and I'm going to I'm going to write that down and circle it. But I'm going to throw something at you. I'm going to steal your thunder. It's in our notes, but I'm going to throw it out to you because when I learned this, it transformed my ability to help the betrayed as well as the unfaithful. It transformed my compassionate understanding is that many times, and this is a nuclear bomb of truth to the unfaithful, to the betrayed, I think they'll all shout, If they come from faith, amen. Thank you, Jesus. If they don't come from faith, they will shout, it's about time, Sam and James. But we, unfaithful, make an enormous mistake that we think logically. It's just not logical that you do this or think this or feel this. We love to say, why can't you just be logical? We try and force our partner into logical responses when we're dealing with massive amounts of trauma, complex trauma, PTSD. I mean, why is it such a big mistake for us?
Well, you know, facts aren't feelings for one, and we'll get into that a little more. But for two, logic just says, well, it negates feelings, right? It says because feelings really can't stand up to logic a lot of the time. Sometimes they can, right? And yet that tells you something. Well, feelings are really important to us. So does logic really supersede feelings? Really, since feelings are always there, we're always trying to overcome them, right? Within ourselves, trying to say, well,
Yeah.
I shouldn't feel that because really it's just this ABC 1, 2, 3. Well, if we're not doing ourselves any favors doing that, and we certainly are not doing our partners any good, right? Doing it like that. So when we're trying to fix stuff, offering solutions, those things are really ignoring the depth and gravitas of the feelings.
And when we disregard our partner's emotions, it really is traumatizing, right? I mean, that's a big concept that you train people in. I mean, I think that's worthy of big expansion.
Yeah, so people think that the only betrayal here is the betrayal trauma. Well, for one thing, the betrayal trauma is compound and complex, right? It's not the one instance of discovery. It's all of the things that happened up to that point. It's the result of the discovery. And what happens is in the sort of, if you were to review everything, how many times has the partner's feelings been disregarded, and how many times has a partner then also said, okay, well, maybe they don't matter, but they do. And when they're disregarded, it is really like saying, you don't count, you don't matter. And that is highly traumatizing to hear from a loved one, from somebody who
Yes.
is your primary love relationship. And really, when you disregard your partner's emotions, it shows how much you disregard your own. So, how many times do you tell yourself those statements that I just made, right? Um, Disregarding your own emotions really kind of, it disconnects you from you, your authentic self. So you can imagine if that's happening, invalidating your partner's emotions sends the message that you don't see her, she doesn't matter, or he doesn't matter, and he or she should present a mask or a persona to you, or a front, right, an image to you, so that you can be comfortable around them. And that's not okay, right?
Right.
Partner should be able to be vulnerable, be able to express who he or she is to you and what they're feeling. Um, it can, the damage can be so subtle, it can be so insidious, and it just compounds. It's not just additive. It's like the synergy of negativity, right?
Now we're going to play a game.
Okay.
I'm going to share a statement that we unfaithful say. So if you are watching or listening, I'm going to be the unfaithful here. James is going to be the expert and talk about what I am really saying to my betrayed when I utter these statements.
All right.
At least it's not as bad as this. It could have been worse. What if I was like that guy or that girl? At least I'm not that bad.
Okay, so that minimizes, right? If I'm your partner, that minimizes my pain. It marginalizes your partner's pain, and there's a reason for that. It's because it ignores the real request in sharing feelings for empathy and to be heard.
Okay. What about this one? This is probably one of the top two. Can you just let it go? Can you just move on? And let me add a caveat. Is it always going to be like this?
Oh yeah, yeah. Wow, that's heavy.
I
So
said that pretty well. I got a lot. I mean, I might have a career in this.
You could. The Emmy is awaiting you. Um, so what it says immediately is you shouldn't feel that way. Your emotional experience isn't valid, right? It doesn't give the processing its due. To immediately move on, like you said, get on with it, means to stuff it. Just to stuff it away. I don't want to hear it. No, there's no surer way to create a resentment against you, the unfaithful, than to tell your partner to stuff it. It also says, and this is really big, and unfaithful, you may not realize that this is what it says, but we got to tell you the truth. It says,
Mhm.
I hold you, partner, in contempt.
It's
And
really, it is so painful. I mean, it really, we don't always realize it. Maybe it's childhood trauma. Sometimes we're parenting our partner the way we were parented. That's another podcast. We are reenacting childhood traumatic patterns that we were subjected to,
yeah,
and we're forcing that upon our partner because it's the only tool in our toolbox. But it so wounds the betrayed. It so puts the betrayed in a box of you're not allowed to go outside this box. How dare you make me feel bad about myself with your emotion? How dare you interrupt my good feelings with your pain and your hurt, even though I caused it, right? I mean, I'm not trying to be an ass. I'm trying to help the unfaithful, but I'm also trying to validate the betrayed and what they might be experiencing.
yeah. So yes, you are, and you're doing a really good job of it. So thank you. You know, Nobody wants to be made to feel like a child, to feel
Mm-mm.
unseen, to feel trivialized, to feel disowned, right? I mean, and that's what it is. And you talk about, this. We have to learn this somewhere, right? It's modeled for us. So, and then it's reinforced through life. And so, but one of the things that is a beautiful thing is that once this is pointed out, then we have a choice to change it, right?
Right.
So for the unfaithful listening here, this is now being pointed out. So listen, repeat this, go through it again, because the more you hear it, the better able you are to say, I don't want to do that. And I know that I can change that, because you can change it. None of these things are so hard that they can't be changed.
No, and go to your betrayed and say, okay, let me get real with you. Is that how you feel? Do I make you feel that way? Do you identify with that? Yes, I do. Okay, I can do better. I will get help. I will invite a third party into this situation to help me change and make changes. So I love that. Moving along, another one. This is my favorite. This is my favorite passive aggressive one, but not my all-time favorite one. My favorite one is, I'm sorry that you feel that way.
Ooh, I'm sorry that you feel that way because it makes me uncomfortable. Um,
Mm,
I'm sorry that you feel that way because I don't want to deal with it. Right.
okay.
So it really means what the message. So when I say really means, I'm saying the message or the impact that it has on a partner is, I don't care how you feel.
Right.
Um, it judges how and what they're feeling as unimportant. It's demeaning. Let me say something about the word demeaning. The root of the word is de, as in or undoing, meaning. So this says, demeaning me, it's a powerful word. It says, I'm taking your meaning away from you.
Oh, geez. You could also say, I'm taking or I'm trying to, because nobody takes away our value. We can surrender it. We can, but at some level, I'm taking away your value, your meaning, your significance, your personhood almost.
Mhm. Yeah. It's also saying, I'm superior to you. I'm more important. Right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Because think about how that lands. Listen to it. What if somebody
Mm.
said that to you? Right? How would you take it? How would it feel to you? And there are going to be some who go, well, I'll just let that roll off me. Well, not really, actually. You may be adept at ignoring it, but it is going to land and it'll hurt. There's an example here. I have to give credit here because it is not my example. So there's a Dr. Jamie Long came up with this, and she calls it the pinching example. So let's say that your partner pinches you, right? And you go, "Ow!" And then your partner says, "Well, I'm sorry you feel that way," and
Yeah.
then they pinch you again. "Ow! Oh, gee, I'm sorry you feel that way." you know, and then it goes
Yeah.
on and on. And guess what? You're gonna get angry. You're gonna be, you're gonna feel like, certainly unseen, unheard, and there's, you know, no love there, right? I'm just keep pinching you. Um, you're going to feel all of these things, so it's a really neat example. It takes it into the physical, which is a really great way to sort of reference how much pain emotional pain is.
Yeah.
So Sharon used to say, when in early recovery, this is like you slammed my finger in a car door and just kept opening it and slamming it again and again and again.
Right. And at this point, I want to throw out a disclaimer. You that are unfaithful who are listening and watching, if you feel shame from this, we're missing the mark. We are not wanting you to feel shame. We're wanting you to feel healthy guilt. If you come from faith, we want you to feel conviction. Those that come from faith will understand godly sorrow that would lead you to repentance. If you don't come from faith, we want you to feel genuine sorrow and grief at the choices that you've made and the impact it has had upon your betrayed. We want you to see this, take ownership of it, try to repair it if possible. If your partner or spouse is unwilling to repair it with you, well, then find out why you did what you did. Work on you, but do not feel shame. We want to help you be educated and help you understand how problematic these behaviors are. So as I transition into another one,
Okay.
I'm done with this. I'm not talking about it anymore.
So this is punishing the partner for having feelings. This is and the punishment is in the form of withdrawing, right? So
Okay.
disengaging from uh, the coupleship, going into it's essentially withdrawing emotional connection. It's also this attempt to get partner to stop sharing, right? Because it's painful to hear. So there's this attempt. Nope, I don't want to hear it anymore. Stop. There's also sort of an element of putting them in their place, the
Yeah.
superiority element, and it also causes suppression. So which causes the emotional disturbance to grow. So for a partner, they're going to then go, well, I can't speak my emotions, so it's going to get stuffed. Well, if it gets stuffed, it's Sharon likes to call it a jar full of worms. You only stuff so much before the sides split out, right? And it's going to come out in a way that is really big.
Okay. If you've just joined us or if you've lost track, we're talking about statements that we, the unfaithful, say that invalidate the feelings and the emotions and even the humanity of the betrayed. Here's another one, and our final one. We say this frequently, it's definitely in the top 10, but we will rewrite history or we will say, that's not what happened. That's not how it went, as if we remembered exactly how it went or how it made our partner feel.
Yes, there is that too. Memories are not perfect; they're perception. So, and we kind of went over this a little bit earlier, but feelings are not facts, right? So when you hold them to the standard of facts, they're made wrong, right? They're not going to hold up to logic, to the standard of facts. That's just too much. Feelings are what they are. Feelings are always right. They don't. That doesn't mean that they're based in the facts. And if you use facts to negate them, then you just made them wrong. And because we identify with our feelings primarily, in terms of who we are, although there are some inaccuracies in that, it is how we identify. And so when they're made wrong, we are, as a person, invalidated. So since their feelings, basically they're an expression of our true self, it takes away our very definite definition of who we are.
Beautifully said. I couldn't wait for this time. Now we're going to transition into why we do this. Now, if you are an unfaithful, you might be sitting back saying, "Oh, so now you're just going to tell me the reason I do this is because I'm a selfish SOB piece of crap." No, absolutely not. You're never going to get that from us. You will be, I think, completely awestruck at why you might be doing this. Everybody's going to fit into different trends and nuances, but there are patterns to this behavior. If you're betrayed, these answers are going to shock you as well because they are so profound into the mind and the heart and the psyche of the unfaithful. So, James, talk a little bit about why we unfaithful do this.
Okay, so our own feelings are really uncomfortable and or even untenable, right? So we negate our partners because we can't tolerate theirs, and we can't tolerate our own and our emotional reactions to why we have them.
So we can't tolerate our own, so we're not going to tolerate anybody else's. Would that indicate that we don't have enough? Some people call it internal self-reference. Some people call it ego strength. Some people call it resilience or grit, emotional intelligence. Does
Right?
it just mean that we can't sustain it?
It means that it affects us so much that we can't self-regulate. So if another person, let's say that somebody's angry or sad, or it's an extreme emotion that they're relating to us, if when that happens, we sort of touch on our own experience of that, and that was so untenable that we couldn't handle it. So we tended to run in one way or the other. Doesn't mean always acting out, but it can mean we would just shut down emotionally, and or get angry or run away or whatever we had to do, um, or just deny our own feelings, right? And so it hits that so much, and our own feelings, we're not often taught how to handle them, right?
Right.
Cope how to cope with our feelings very well. So that's called self-regulation, when we can kind of keep it in the window of tolerance, right? And so we're not going below where we're freezing or above where we're hyper emotive, right? So, okay, but we're afraid of it overwhelming us. So,
Yeah.
so when somebody else is expressing them, it's like, right? We have the same reaction that we do to our own. And so since we can't tolerate it, we try to shut them down.
And oftentimes, would you agree? What I have found, I alluded to this earlier, but it's a fascinating understanding. I learned it from you. I learned it from other clinicians that taught me this, that when we are pushed to an uncomfortable point, oftentimes, so if a husband has a betrayed wife in this scenario and she's expressing emotion and pain and hurt, but he can't handle it and he gets all angry and then he starts to lash out and say, "I can't take it. This is too much. You need to get over it." Isn't it typically that, not always, but oftentimes that person steps into trying to control their partner's emotions the way that maybe their mom or their dad tried to control their emotions, and so they didn't learn emotional intelligence on how to stay in it with their partner
Oh yeah,
and be okay with their partner's uncomfortable emotions. Am I right?
absolutely. So that's a
Of
great.
course I'm right, because you taught me a lot of that.
Yes, of course you're right, Sam, because you're Sam. No, but
Right.
you know, we learned this the hard way, right? Yeah, I mean, I have education and all of that, but most of this I learned because of my own stuff. So I had to learn, why was I doing it, right? Um, so I think that, I mean, that's a big deal, to learn why am I doing it, but really
Right.
the bigger deal is to learn, what did I learn and what haven't, and how can I do it differently, right? Because what did I learn is how I'm going to react to feelings coming my way, especially
Yeah.
ones. Um, you know, we can we get into denial as well. That's one of our big defense mechanisms, when we don't know what else to do with it. So we deny our partners, we deny our own, and what that indicates is a really deep shame surrounding whatever
Mm.
that is. And so that's a thing to look into in your own work with a therapist or a coach. Why is that shame coming up, and why is it blocking or creating these blind spots for me in terms of how I'm interacting with my partner? My partner deserves to be heard. I think everybody can logically go, that's true, right? Or they can just take our word for it. But it is true. And just as much as, guess what? You unfaithful deserve to be heard. Um, at this, if you're in the early stages, obviously by a coach, a therapist, a sponsor, a mentor, supports, and so on, not your partner, because he or she won't be in that position to be able to do that for you. So the denying is really comes from that shame that I don't matter to other people and in the world. And then what we're
Yeah.
doing is we're projecting that or pushing that because of our behaviors as we've received them. We do the same to our partner, and then they feel that way, that we don't matter to us, or they don't matter to us. Sorry. And then when we hear someone else's painful feelings, just to sort of summarize that, it triggers our own painful and self-critical feelings about ourselves. So we'll start criticizing ourselves for having those feelings.
Okay, I mean, I just love the data. I love the info on this. Now, as an unfaithful listening or even a betrayed, how do they change it? How do they make these changes besides just finding a third party? Well, we're third party, so here's some things that they can do.
So I think the first thing is just being willing to accept that your invalidation of your partner's emotions is hurtful and harmful. If you can
Hmm.
accept that, then you'll have the impetus to start changing it, right? Second, we have to learn how to validate. Now, this isn't a short thing, right? It's not like okay, here you go, 1, 2, 3, but it's
Right.
not that difficult. So I just want to, I think it's worth going into the little steps here towards actually validating, because if you're going to stop invalidating, you need to start validating. It's certainly very effective
Absolutely.
is doing the opposite, right? Um, so understand that by validating your partner's feelings, you're not necessarily agreeing with them. So you're not giving up what you think about those feelings, right? Or where they're coming from. So you're not forgetting your facts, right? But you are putting them aside because that's not helpful, as we've already talked about. So the other thing is you don't have to like the emotion that's being expressed, but you do have to be able to accept and acknowledge that it's real for your partner, right?
Yep.
And so that means you have to have some tolerance for it. Right?
Right.
You have to develop some tolerance for it. Even if you're white knuckling that initially, you will get to a place where you can actually hear those emotions, which is the ideal, right? Empathetically hear what is going on for your partner in terms of their feelings. So you don't have to like the emotion that's being expressed, but you do have to accept and acknowledge that it's real for
Right.
your partner.
It's real for them. If you could think that way, stop thinking logically, it's real for them. If we could grab hold of that, I think it would help us move the ball down the field. Of the recovery is like football, and football is a game of inches, and so is recovery, man. If you could grab that truth and run for it, holy crap, it would change your life. I guarantee it. All right, keep going.
Keep in mind that facts and behaviors can be contested, but not feelings and not the expression of those feelings. So
Right.
it's really a vital rule to go in if you're going to learn how to validate. This is vital. Don't solve or fix.
Mhm.
Men especially, right? And I can say
Yes.
that because I am one. We always love to solve or fix. We've talked about this before, but so don't do that. But you can ask, do you want my help with this?
Absolutely. Being engaged, communicating, staying in the fight. When a betrayed feels like a problem to be fixed, when they feel like a math problem, they feel like it's just being one-offed. Fix it and make me go away because I'm such a burden. I'm such a pain in the ass. I'm such a just a difficult scenario. You just want to fix me and move me down the road. We don't have time to go into it, but that's the quick one. What else?
Listen and ask questions like, is there more? So reflecting back, your partner's feeling and the pain that they're feeling. You can get a little bit interpretive there and just ask, is there more to that? Right? I want to know if there's more to that, because you're taking an interest in what they're feeling and you want them to be able to express that. Listen, I know unfaithfuls are going to be, oh my, but I'm going to invite so much more, and I don't, and it's going to be too much. And, you know, the more you do this, the more, yes, at the beginning, because it's been stuffed for so long. But the more
Exactly.
you do it, the less stuffed it's been, and the more tolerable you're going to find those feelings, and you'll be able to stay with your partner on them.
And ultimately, your partner finds you to be safe, you to be doing work. They see that you are hanging in it. Even if you go from 15 minutes to 20 to 25 to 30, before you know it, you'll be at 45 minutes to an hour, and they will be like, what the heck? James and Sam are brilliant. This unfaithful is staying in the fight with me longer. So, okay, what else? Keep
Okay.
going.
Acknowledge and validate your partner's feelings without judgment or caveat, right? You don't want to go, okay, yeah, I hear that you're feeling that. I get why you're feeling that. And you're wrong. You can't do it with any kind of judgment. That stuff has to stay out of it. You're just acknowledging and validating. Um,
Yes.
that's so important. It says, I'm hearing you, I'm seeing you, and I'm hearing you, right? You got to accept some responsibility for part of it. I can see how my actions or behaviors were hurtful. Use the amends process that we outlined a few episodes ago. That's a really good episode, by the way, because it really gives you a very easy outline to follow to make amends.
One of
So,
the most successful videos I ever did was when I said to the unfaithful, stop defending the 10% that you think he or she are wrong about, and just own the 90%. Because
yeah,
when you defend the 10%, you look like an ass, and you look like you're trying to you manage your image. Just own the 90%, bro. Own the 90%, girl, and then help your partner feel safe, right? So,
I always like to
immense
ask
process.
yeah, I always like to ask myself, is that the hill I really want to die on?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right. All right. So
Okay.
what do the betrayeds need? A little caveat. How can the betrayeds work through this?
Okay. So betrayeds, listen to and trust your intuition about what you need to nurture yourself. So, give yourself affirmations, give yourself some alone time, solitude, right? Not isolation. Alone time meaning things that help grow you, things that help bring you back to a place of serenity, of calm, of peace. Talking with a true friend who can hear you and love you. That's trusting your intuition about what you need for yourself. Trust that. It's trustworthy. Um, Acknowledge to yourself that your unfaithful is negating your feelings to protect and defend their own issues, be they insecurity, fear, shame, untenable feelings. Um, and part of that is it helps you see where they are in their own journey, not to be compassionate here, right? Not saying that, but more to understand that it really isn't about you. Because part of this is, partners, it's so easy to take this on that personal level because it sure feels like it.
Yeah.
Right. And then you can get, okay, there, so that's really about them. I get why they might go there, whatever that is, family of origins, taking things as criticism and personally, emotional immaturity, and so on. But it really tells you that's not about me, because
Yeah.
that fundamentally gives you some internal strength and resourcing.
Yes.
Um, Here's the thing that Sharon likes to say a lot. I know I quote Sharon a lot, but she's like a quote
You
machine.
better. You should.
Right? She says her mama or grandma used to tell her, you don't have to join every fight you're invited to.
Right.
And so partners, don't accept the invitation to debate your feelings. You don't need to defend or factualize or support your feelings. They simply are. And that's all that matters. You just express, right? You don't have to defend them in any way, shape, or form. Besides, even if you tried, you're not going to change. If you're unfaithful is in that mind where they're not going to be receptive or they're not listening, you're never going to change their mind about it in that moment, right? Because they're in shame and in a fear spiral, and means they're not able to think straight. I know this from personally being in those shame spirals.
Yep, absolutely. And isn't it safe to say that one of the best things that they can do is to say, if you want access to me, I'm sorry, it's going to be on my terms. We're going to go find somebody. We're going to do an intensive like you do, or couples work like you do, or I do. And there's so many other wonderful professionals. I've had many of them in on my own podcast, and you can refer people out. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
But isn't it safe to say the last thing that the betrayed wants to try and do is be the therapist or coach that the unfaithful needs? They can't reach them, right?
Yeah, you can't, don't, it will destroy you. It will tear you apart. I can't tell you how many times I went to Sharon and said, "Oh, I just learned this." And she was like, "I've been telling you
Yeah.
that for years," right? You're not going to be heard. Therapists and coaches help break down perspectives that are distorted or aren't seen through the right lens. That with couples, that's always going to be the case where each one has their perspective, and that creates blind spots. So remember, the drowning man cannot hear instructions on how to swim. Another
No.
Sharonism. And so it's going to fall on deaf ears. Stop explaining yourself, right? It is not, it's not going to be heard. You don't need to explain your feelings. And besides, you're going to use up all your energy. You're going to end up frustrated and unheard and re-traumatized in the I don't matter piece, right?
Yes, I think today, I mean, I am always taking notes during these podcasts. Number one, it keeps me focused, but number two, there's so many nuggets. There's things that come to me about my own life. There's things that you constantly share that I just want to challenge you that are listening and watching. I hope you take notes, or I hope you rewatch these episodes multiple times, because they can be so insightful for your own life as well as your partner's. If it's kind of like a cheat code for you unfaithful, if you want to know why and how your betrayed is responding the way they are, take this information, study it, begin to even have conversations. I have some couples watch our episodes and then talk about it on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday night. I ask them to take an hour, take 30 minutes, have a glass of wine, or if you don't drink, have something comfy, have dessert, and talk about the episode. What did it mean for you? What did it challenge you on? What did it maybe bring some grief about? What did it open up your eyes to? And so, for those of you that are new, man, I hope that this has sucked you in. I hope you'll go watch and listen to so many of our older podcasts. And if you are a longtime listener and viewer, we are just honored. We would love for you to subscribe. We'd love for you to reach out if we can point you in the right direction. Look, if we can't help you, we're going to try and do our best to send you somewhere to get help. So, James, I think today, man, I just thought you were so brilliant. I thought you were so pinpoint with the actions of the unfaithful, but that as an unfaithful, I didn't feel any shame by anything that you said. So maybe finish by just 1 minute of encouragement to the unfaithfuls that are out there, maybe going, I listened to this and I feel like a piece of crap. I hit all the markers. I am guilty. Nobody's worse than me. What do you say to them before we say goodbye?
Everything that I just said about how to validate, right? How to validate your partner, do it for yourself. Validate your own feelings. Be kind to yourself about them because they are real, and don't try to logic them out. Don't try to white knuckle. Just listen to yourself, because you deserve to treat yourself well about your feelings, because guess what? Then you'll be able to tolerate them more, and you'll be able to be more connected. The deal is, the more connected we can be with ourselves, the more connected we can be with our partners.
It's so true. And this is going to sound counterintuitive. Some of you betrayeds might feel like, what? But it is okay to have compassion on yourself. Compassion doesn't mean that what you're doing is okay or healthy or good. It's not justification.
Right.
Self-compassion says, I've made terrible mistakes. And you know what I can do? I can own them. I can repair them if possible. I can repair myself no matter what. I can get up. I can decide to live again. I can decide to own my mistakes, and whoever I can repair with, spouse, partner, kids. I have a lot of people on my caseload right now who are trying to repair their relationships
Yeah.
with their adult children due to the infidelity. And so if you're on the course of restoration, that might be with more than just your partner. It might be with your kids, but it's certainly going to be with yourself, right, James?
Yeah. Remember, self-compassion isn't blanket forgiveness, and it's not permission to do those things, to do these things, to be ugly, to certainly not act out, of course. Um, I hope that goes without saying. Uh, but
It
it's
doesn't, but I'm
self
glad that you said
right.
something.
Well, self-compassion is, we have to lead with that, because otherwise, how are we ever going to be empathetic with anybody else, compassionate with anybody else? But it does not mean blanket forgiveness, and it does not mean permissiveness.
Awesome. Thank you for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button. We'll see you again next week on Ask the Unfaithful.